World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
Hello, and welcome once again to another fantastic Tuesday where we get to do what we do best, which is help you get that knowledge, to get that understanding of what you're going to have to do to move forward. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Leverage Your Score, where we do what we do best, as I said, to help you get to that next level. My name is Tyrone Glover, and I'm the Dress Down CEO of Leverage Credit Recovery, and I want to welcome you to another fantastic Tuesday. Tuesday in a brand new month. So last month was Black History Month. This month is Women's Month, so I'm hoping that a lot of women will join this conversation and get the understanding that you need to be able to move forward. Next month, we're looking forward to Financial Literacy Month, which is going to be one of the stronger months that we're going to do a lot of great things as we move through the understanding of Financial Literacy Month. But we're going to get started today with dying on the clock. Yes, there are a lot of us out there who, unfortunately, with all of the information that we now know, the information that we now share, the information that we now are trying to put into your hand, not trying, but attempting to put in your hands so that you will be able to live past whatever that might look like with the United States government and the world, more or less, has put people in these circumstances and situations. So dying on the clock is scary. It is scary. It is sad that we have to talk about something that we should not be talking about, but it is a reality. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Before that, this is live on Soul City Network, and Soul City Network is a fantastic platform doing exactly what it needs to be doing. It's a Black-owned and operated, and we are so proud to be part of this network. But as I said, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. If you got any questions, concerns, comments that you want to leave, please do not hesitate to drop those comments in the comment area so we can answer those questions as we go along the broadcast. But again, dying on the clock, this is scary. This is scary. The retirement lie, the class war, why 7% changes everything. This is a new installment from the Wealth Lab. Wealth is an acronym for wealth, entrepreneurship, assets, literacy, taxes, and health. And this is our brand new series that we are adding to the platform. So again, thank you for making time. And I hope you stay through the whole entire session. If not, please come back and review this at a later time frame. All right, so here we go. 3 questions before we begin. All right, I want you to answer these honestly. I want you to write these down. I want you to have these later on so that if you have any questions, concerns, comments, hopefully you'll reach back out to us and we'll be able to answer those questions and comments as time goes on. All right, so here we go. Answer these honestly. If the median American worker has $955 saved for retirement and you're not furious What are you waiting for? Okay, think about that for a second. If the median American worker has $955 saved for retirement and you are not furious, what are you waiting for? Question number two. If 51% of Americans over 65 plan to work indefinitely, when do we call it a death sentence with a paycheck? I told you this is going to be scary. This is going to be something that should be making you think, something that should be making you reconsider, something that should be drawing you into an understanding of maybe you might not have enough to do what you need to do. I told you this was going to be scary and is hopefully putting you in a position where you are now going to start thinking about your retirement. Question number three. If 69 trillion sits in US stocks and the bottom 50% own 1%, who designed this and why are we playing by their rules? All right, those three questions are serious questions. I want you to think about them. I want you not to rush to them. I want you to think about them, and I want you to start making some analysis. Where are you, and what are you going to do to make sure that you do not fall into these categories? So there was always three questions, and we're going to be doing that as a regular, asking three questions to begin and probably finishing off with a couple of questions as well. But here's a nice quote that I want you to walk away with. This should be an affirmation from everybody from Warren Buffett. If you do not find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on the face of the planet. If you do not find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. I'm going to leave it there. Move on right to the next slide. Let's go. I told you this is going to be something that's going to make you think. It's going to be something that's going to make you reconsider how you are investing, how you are saving, how you are adding a new skill, which is financial literacy, to your portfolio. If you're not, I'm telling you, this is going to be a reality for a lot of people. So the lab, what this is and isn't. We deal in receipts. All right. We do a great job in doing all of the research, diving into those areas where most people do not. And this is designed to help, again, the poor, the working poor, the working homeless, the ever eroding middle class, youth, our most valuable and vulnerable asset and resource, and students of all ages, all backgrounds, all levels. This is specifically designed for those categories. And if you start doing, again, a fraction of what we're asking you, you'll probably see that you'll be able to navigate whatever challenges, obviously, clearly, with more assistance and more work to come. All right, so not theories, not maybes, not TikTok finance. Okay, we are dealing in data, evidence, and truth that makes comfortable people uncomfortable. So the mission is move people from exposure to ownership. That's all this is. And we're going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And being that this is Women's Month, I'm hoping that more women tend to join the program and more women tend to think about what their lives are going to look like. And I'm hoping that, again, we get a variety of different elements to start thinking more strategically. This is Women's Month, but last month was Black History Month. Next month is Financial Literacy Month. So these 3 months are excellent months for groups to now come together and start deciding what type of future are you going to have. And this is going to be a 2-part series because this requires a lot more talking and a lot more addressing of concerns. So the retirement lie, America's longest running con. Now think about that for a second. The retirement lie. Are you going to retire at a certain age? And what type of income will you have? Because the median retirement saving workers 21 to 64, my apologies, they're going to have roughly about $955. Scary. All right. Even among slave savers, medium is 40,000 versus 1.5 million previously needed. So times are changing, things are getting more expensive. It's going to become more and more out of reach. So it's basically, what are you going to do to fill that gap? From age 55 to 64, only 19% are targeted saved. That should scare a lot of people. That means you're probably going to retire and you're going to be on a fixed income, but all of your costs are still going to continue to keep rising. What are you going to do? You got to get in front of it now. Because if you get in front of it now, there might be some course corrections that you'll probably be able to make. But if you do not get in front of it now, I'm already telling you, these numbers are real. And they are very scary. All right, so the architects of the crises. The system locked people out first, then blamed them. Now think about that. The system that was created, the system that we talk about all the time, how the United States wages on the federal level, minimum wage is $7.25. States have added a little bit to that. You have something in New York where they have a minimum wage, depending on where you live in New York, of $17, 17 and some change. In Yonkers, where I live, it's 15 and some change. You may have employers who decide to give you a little bit more, but they're still keeping you on that minimum. They might even take you up to fair, but are they really addressing what needs to be addressed, which is a living wage? 56 million private sector workers, no employer plan access. That is 56 million private sector workers with no employer plan access. I hope they're putting something away. Because if they're not, as this PowerPoint started, you're going to work until you die. 83 million plus when adding gig, part-time, and non-traditional work. Okay, and that's going to add to the individuals who do not have any savings, any investment or employee access plans. 42% of full-time workers lack access. 40% don't participate even with access. Come on, these numbers should be alarming. People should be jumping up, screaming. People should be dropping comments in these comment areas asking, whoa, could you go over that again? But these are going to always be accessible to anyone. These viewings are always available for anyone to come back later on and take a deep dive into this program, because they're always out there on Soul City. And if you need me to hand over these PowerPoints to you because you may want to present this to your team or to your family or whatever that might look like, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to send them out to you. All right, the punchline: working until death. Indefinitely is the polite word. And it's scary to have to say that. 51% of employed Americans, 65 plus, plan to work indefinitely. Scary, 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 scary. And there's another one that we're going to do, not next week, because we're going to finish this one off next week, but wait till you see that next PowerPoint presentation. The employment or the employer trap. Excuse me, employee trap, my apologies. Another scary visual understanding of what it's going to look like if you do not start getting in front of your financial literacy concerns. Among those working past 65, 48 cite financial necessity. Another 24% expect to work to cover basic expenses. Things are going to get more expensive. Things are going to become out of reach for a lot of individuals. Choices are going to have to be made as to food or medication, as to paying your rent on time or having to delay it for a week or two until that resource refills itself. So it's really important to start to understand, what is it going to look like for you? All right. Unretiring plus age discrimination. Oh, yeah, I told you this was going to be alarming. It was going to be scary, and it was meant for that purpose. And I'm hoping that more and more people, as I said, you're going to follow this. You're going to decide to do something different. I'm going to be putting this recording out on my social media platforms so that more people on my TikTok and on my Instagram and on my Facebook can get a gander of this. But this needs to be shared. It needs to be put out there in so many spaces and places. So I'm hoping that everyone who does have the opportunity to dive in, you share it as well. But take a look at this. The exit door is locked and the re-entry door is hostile. 7% of retirees have unretired, returned back to work. Nearly half driven back by financial pressure. 2/3 of older job seekers report difficulty. Age discrimination is the top barrier. So you're going to go back to work and you're going to earn a salary or a wage. And again, a good percentage of that is going to be snatched away in taxes. So what should you be thinking about doing now, that younger generation? What should you be thinking about doing now, those who are in that 20s and the 30s, those who are in that 30s to 40s? What are some of the adjustments that you're going to have to make? Because you need to start thinking about making them now. Not later, but now. All right, retirement risk, the shortfall. Even doing everything right isn't enough for many households. Boston College NRI, 50% of households at risk of falling short. All right, as I said, I did my research, I did my study, I did my history. I went back in time to make sure that everything that I'm giving, and as I always say over and over and over and over and over, if there's any institutions out there who want to challenge, you are more than welcome to join the program at any time. Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, any of these large institutions that claim, oh, we're just hyperbole, we're just putting out propaganda, please join the program. You have an open invitation. Typical household shortfalls, 400, 500K. And these are individuals who have good incomes. And that's still short. You're still going to be short 400 to 500,000. This is structure, not personal failure. Think about that for a minute. This is a system that was designed to keep a certain amount of individuals literally working until death. In the richest nation on the face of the planet, in the most prosperous time frame of our history. This is shameful. I blame myself. And everybody who looks in the mirror should also equally blame themselves, because the first thing to recovery is recognizing where that came short. So you got to blame yourself first. You got to put the onus on you before you start pointing the fingers out in that stratosphere of everyone else. So I know where I came up short, and I'm doing everything that I need to make sure that that doesn't happen to me. And I'm hoping that you're doing the exact same thing. Right? So Social Security, the last net frame. So let's take a look at this. Projected insolvency around 2033, 2034. So that Social Security net that you were hoping was going to be there may not be there. Projected benefit cuts, 20% if unchanged. So that means what you thought you were going to be getting for Social Security is now not going to be there for Social Security. And that's going to be another issue that you're going to have to deal with at some time. But if you don't do it now, when is it going to change? It's not going to change. You're going to find yourself somewhere where you don't want to be. So with that being said, let's take a look at the next one. 44% of Americans expect Social Security as primary retirement income. 44%. A 20% cut in groceries is part of this equal program and process that you're going to have to deal with that you probably are not going to like. My apologies. I do know that individuals will continue to keep trying to do something. And this is why live shows are so cool, because you get disturbances, you get blocks, you get all kinds of things. And again, never is going to stop the fact that what we're presenting here, this information, is valuable. It is valuable. And if you do your part, I'm telling you right now, you're probably going to find yourself where you're going to be able to course correct prior to it becoming a situation or a concern. All right, let's talk about the presidential autopsy. So I've always said that each president has contributed to the middle class being eroded. And that's a sad, sad situation to think about. So I'm going to dive into this presidential autopsy from 1971 up until now. The middle class didn't die in its sleep. It was murdered by policy across 5 decades. All right. We have been partaking, we have been giving, we have been contributing, we have been doing our part. But unfortunately, ROI, which I've said on many of occasions, ROI, return on investment, has not paid off. So we're doing everything that we need to do, but what are they really doing? Think about this. If 60% of Congress is millionaires, are millionaires really trying to help the poor? Are millionaires really trying to make sure that the working poor have what they need? Are millionaires and billionaires, and we have more billionaires now in that executive branch probably than ever we've ever had before. So are millionaires and billionaires really trying to make sure that the poor, the working homeless, and the ever-eroding middle class has what it needs? I'm going to have to strongly say no. And if there are any congressmen, any elected officials, anyone who wants to join in the conversation, as I say all the time, you have an open invitation anytime, anywhere. And I'm looking to go down to Congress at some point to tell Congress, hey, Congress, let's sit down and have a conversation, because I would love to be able to let you explain why is it that so many people in America are going to be short or have shortcomings when it comes to their retirement. Middle class share of population, 61% in 1971, 50% in 2023. Middle class share of income in 1970 was 62%. Today, or 2022, it was 43%. We're losing no matter what we think about or how we think about it in any capacity. Coming up short, coming up short, coming up short. Underclass share, 29% versus 48%. Surpassed middle class in 2009. The upper class, they went from 29% to 48%. Come on now. So clearly, trickle-down economics started way before Ronald Reagan came out with the understanding of trickle-down economics. Let's take a look deeper into these presidencies. Let's look at Nixon. So how did Nixon start eroding everything? He ended the dollar convertibility to gold, the Nixon shock. This is where inflation era began, purchasing power erodes. The post 1971 productivity and worker page diverged. Shifted priorities, inflation control over full employment. So here's Nixon's contribution to the erosion of the middle class, creating more and more poor, creating another category called the working poor, creating another category called the working homeless. So let's see how Carter and Ford did, or Ford and Carter. Ford plus Carter, the transition, 1974 to 1981. Ford, high unemployment, little structural rebuilding. Carter, strong GDP growth, but high inflation. We had the Volcker era, rate hikes crash borrowers, inflation falls, later pain hits early. All right, think about that for a minute. These are presidents who claim that they are going to make sure that everything, or not everything, but as much as they need to create wealth for those rungs or those ladders to remain intact. Well, each president took a saw and they cut those rungs. So those ladder steps that you were making to get to that next level, it was harder and harder to reach. All right, the stage is set for trickle-down policies. Here we go. Reagan, the executioner, 1981 to 1986, top tax rate from 50% to 28%. So you're talking about 23 or 22%, 22% cut. That is a gap, y'all. When 22% gets cut, that creates a gap. That means, how is that gap going to be filled? Who's filling it? What is going to be added to that to make up that shortfall? Union power is crushed. You had the PATCO, firing, signals, open season. Social Security spending squeeze, defense spending rises. So again, a shift. Money that should have been coming to the citizens went into a whole new different category, in a whole new different era. Poverty and inequality increased, unions declined. Okay, structural. This wasn't something that was just done because of policy. This was something that was done to create the ongoing understanding of, let's keep the rich getting richer. Let's keep the rich moving into a new category called the wealthy. Let's keep the rich moving into a new category called the wealthy, and then creating one more top-notch tier, which is now called the uber wealthy. Let's see what Bush Sr. and Clinton did. The paradox. So we got Bush Sr., low growth, higher poverty, recession pressure. We got Clinton, strong economy plus low unemployment, but deregulation grows. We got the NAFTA accelerates manufacturing. Losses in many regions. And we're still trying to figure out, we're trying to bring back manufacturing. Well, Clinton and Bush added to that. So once that was gone, it's going to be even more challenging to bring it back. 1999, you got the repeal of Glass-Steagall. Wall Street's risk expands. Then you really had problems when Wall Street can run free and rampant to do whatever they want. So you see, every president bought into whatever it was that, whether they be lobbyists, whether they be deep pocket people, whatever that may look like. It should have been made clear that if they don't do X, Y, and Z for the citizens, then they can't have all of these benefits. Let's take a look at what Bush Jr. And here's the collapse. 2001 to 2009. 2008 crisis wipes out $7 trillion in household wealth. Let that sit for a little second. $7 trillion in household wealth wiped out. Bye. See you later. Should be ashamed of ourselves. We should be ashamed of ourselves. Negative GDP. Growth across the term, unemployment spikes. So here's the beginning of almost the end for the middle class. That gap started getting wider and wider and wider. Those smaller categories that I just mentioned, the poor, the working homeless, they started to getting larger and larger and larger. That middle class started to get more out of reach for those three categories that we just mentioned, creating new categories for the rich, the wealthy, and now uber wealthy. $7 trillion in household wealth gone. Negative GDP growth across the term. Unemployment spikes. Tax policies favor top brackets while the middle class hemorrhages. So now I can see why people started thinking, well, my vote doesn't matter. No matter who I put in there, they're still going to do whatever they need to do for clearly not for the people that who elected them to get in there. We're not going to take anything away from the rich and from the wealthy and from the uber wealthy, taking anything away from you. But we know policies has definitely favored you. And as we approach our now 250-year anniversary, I am making a pledge, and I'm hoping that everybody else joins this pledge. This cannot go into 251 years. Something must be done to course correct, or we're going to find ourselves losing even more and more and more and more of our dignity. So we're going to get to our guy, those who voted for him, and he is my guy, President Obama, and we're going to take a look at what the Trump and Biden, the middle squeeze. All right, so we had Obama, stabilization, but recovery favored whom? Asset owners. We got Trump, who jumped in and did it again. He cut corporate tax rates, giving them more. Fragility exposed by pandemic. We got Biden, who came in, growth plus jobs, but inflation surge hits essentials. So again, harder and harder and harder for those who have less and less and less. Net results, asset owners gain, wage earners struggle. As I said, I purposely made this so that it would be scary. I purposely put this together so people would start thinking more about what their lives are going to look like, not just those who are getting closer to that 50, 60, maybe retirement age, but the youth. Those currently in school today, our K through 12, which is the preparatory stage, our higher education, those attempting to get those associates, those bachelors, those masters. And if you decide to go even further and get that doctorates, these are the ones who are going to be even hit harder if we don't course correct now, before we get to that next anniversary. 250 years, a milestone for our country, something that we should be celebrating. And we rightfully should be celebrating. We have done some great things in this nation, but we have put far too many people in harm's way to sit back and say we are the greatest nation. Love this country unconditionally, but I will do what James Baldwin said. I'm going to talk about it. Let's take a look at the class system's unspoken cast. So we got Americans have a class system. It just refuses to name it. I'm naming it. I'm putting it out there so everybody understands, where do you stand? Where do you stand? Where are you? And think about how you need to get out of it. The working poor. Employed still can't cover basics. The working homeless. Employed, unhoused, growing category. The middle class, shrinking and losing purchasing power. The wealthy, income from assets, not labor. And if I talked about assets versus labor, 50% of your money. Let's take this into consideration, all right? You got $100,000. Right? Of that $100,000, one of your biggest expenses that's going to come before you even touch that is taxes, 50%. I'm a single person, so I'm anywhere from 48 to 52. But we're going to keep it simple. $100,000, 50% of that is gone in taxes. You're now down to $50,000. Of that $50,000, the next biggest expense is going to be your rent. You want to live somewhere where it's nice, where it's decent, where it's clean, where you have good roads, good schools, and all of the accompanies that, accompanying that comes with that. So now you're down to 50. That next biggest expense is where you live, your rent or your mortgage. 50% of that is gone. Now you're down to $25,000 to live for 365 days. If you're not making $100,000, good luck to you, because anything less than that, still use that same math. It's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder and harder for these youth that are coming out of, whether that look like high school into higher education into the working space, those who are already in the working space. And I've said it many times before, if they can mandate sexual harassment, then they should be mandating financial literacy. So the wealth concentration, the receipts. Remember what I told you? We are about receipts. We are about facts. We are about data. We are about resources to make sure that you understand where you got to go to find out what are these individuals even talking about? Are they talking about the things that we need, the things that we understand? Well, I'm telling you right now, it's exactly what we do. All right, so let's take a look at the middle class. Middle class, 8% of household wealth. Of the $168 trillion, the middle class holds $13.4 trillion. Of 168 trillion, 8% of household wealth is 13.4 trillion. The top 1% hold more wealth than the entire bottom 90% combined. Let that sit for a minute. Matter of fact, take a screenshot of that, share it around the office, share it around the water cooler, share it in the barbershop, share it at your grocery store. The top 1% hold more than the entire 90% at the bottom combined. For every $1 in white household wealth, black households only own $15. What are we talking about? And when you think about, again, Black History Month, we are one of the largest contributors in the economy. If we were to just reallocate, reshift our money into Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and told corporate America, thank you, but no thank you, because you are not playing by the same understanding that we are when it comes to our contribution. So you got to start thinking more strategically. And if you don't know how, this is why this program exists. This is why Access Wealth Nation on Thursdays with our dear, dear friend, Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse exists. This is why Soul City Network exists. This is why Eridita Anderson in her show exists, because we are attempting to make it manageable for our people to have the life that they need and want and deserve and desire. You're living in the richest nation on the face of the planet in the most prosperous time frame in our history. But there's something off. And the only way to correct it is to identify it. All right, working homeless, the invisible crises. 2024, 771,480 homeless on a given night. That is plus 18% year over year. 40 to 60% of people experiencing homelessness hold jobs. California accounts for 1 in 4 homeless Americans, all because it's nice and warm over there. And we get it. Nobody wants to be in a 4-season climate where you're going to be freezing your butt off. And then you got to go into a shelter or whatever that might look like. The dignity of work has been stolen, and not due to your failures or your fault. I'm going to take that back. Not your failures, your fault. Rent greater income equals collapse. So your rent is surpassing your income. Unaffordability. Trump keeps saying it's not real, but it is very real for these numbers that we are presenting here. The racial wealth gap. Black Americans, 12% of the population, hold 3.4% of wealth. 12% of the population, we hold 3.4% of wealth. But yet our contribution within the system or in the system is almost 2.5, depending on where you get your information, let's say between $2 and $3 trillion. And if we were to shift that into Black businesses, if we were to shift that into other understandings, we would probably do far better. But when are we going to make those shifts? When are we going to make those adjustments? We're going to make those adjustments when? When are we going to make those adjustments? You have to decide for yourself, not for me. You have to decide, when do you want to make those adjustments? Because if you make those adjustments, guess what? You'll get what you need. You don't make those adjustments, guess what? It's going to be very, very challenging. But we can only change what we know how to change. And once we start making those changes, we're not going to exclude those businesses. We're just going to tell them, until you are playing by the same rules that we are participating by, we can't partake in our own demise. 1998, 2022, average white households' wealth grew 7.2 times more than Black households. Why? What are they doing differently? Oh, they're investing. They know how to trade. They understand how money works. They're making strategic moves. They're not trying to outbuy the next individual. They're not dressing up with the Fendi and the Gucci and the Prada and the whatever that else might look like, because the Chinese just blew the lid off of that. And you want to know how? Well, they just blew all that up on the social media outlets by saying, hey, that very same Coach bag and that very same whatever that might look like, guess what? They're producing it in the same sweatshops that the knockoffs are producing it in. Yeah, you used to maybe get in the 70s, in the early 80s, genuine leather, but they just blew the lid off it. You don't believe me? Again, I know there's a lot of propaganda out there. Well, do your due diligence. Look it up. Maybe you'll stop thinking about, oh, I need to get a $1,000 bag or a $2,000 suitcase. For what? All right. Stock equity, 30% of white wealth versus 4% of Black wealth. So if you do not have appreciating assets, here's a part of the problem. And wait till we hit that one that we're going to talk about in about 3 weeks from now. I'm just put it out there. You got to be prepared, because that one's going to be. You think the employee trap is going to scare you worse than this one? Wait till we start talking about how wealth was stolen through land grabbing. Oh, yeah. That's going to be even more of a shocker as we get into Financial Literacy Month. Median Black wealth, 44,890 versus 285 versus white wealth. So you can see where there is a lot of situations that still need to be rectified, that must be rectified. And we can rectify them now, or guess what's going to happen? It's not going to get better. It is not going to get better. But that's not up to me. That is up to you. That is up to you to look at all four of these categories that you are witnessing, this racial wealth gap, and you're going to have to decide what is it that you're going to do differently. You're going to have to increase. We're increasing the population, but we're going to have to increase how much wealth we have. If we're participating in the trillions, then it's really important that we participate or make sure that our money is being put into situations that benefit us. They can't just be thrown out there and nothing happens. Can't be done that way. We cannot continue to do that as a reality. It's not going to work. We have to change this trajectory. We have no other choice. And this goes to my African Americans. This goes to my Hispanic brethren and sisters. This goes to my poor whites who think just because their skin color gives them privilege. This goes to our Asian brothers and sisters. This goes to our Middle Eastern brothers and sisters. The society as a whole. If you are in those lower rungs, then you're going to have to do some things that are going to be different. The pain is already there. You're just going to now decide to, am I going to put a Band-Aid on this gaping wound? Or am I going to get some stitches to stitch it up completely and let it heal in the manner in which it needs to? That's not up to me. That's up to you. Women plus wealth, power in motion. We are in Women's Month. Women hold, again, think about this, women. Think about this, women. Women hold 18 trillion investable assets in 2023, projected to reach 34 trillion by 2030. Imagine if you said, oh, wait a minute. Let me put a pause on sending my money to all of these places and let me start putting that money into women-owned businesses. Let me start putting that money into Black-owned businesses or Hispanic-owned businesses, whatever that might look like for you, prioritizing something different than what we are doing. Women earn 81 cents per $1 the male earns. 25 report poor, very poor financial health versus 18% of men. 71% of women assets remain in cash. They're not even investing. So if you need help, if you need assistance, well, this is what these shows are for. This is why we have a station called Soul City Network to do what we do, which is to make sure that our people and all, we're not excluding anyone, but we are definitely going to be talking to those who have already been excluded. But as I said, it's not up to me. All right, it is 6:45, and I'm still looking for one or two questions that might pop up on the scenery there. But if you do have something that you want to add to the conversation, please, by all means, jump in. Jump in. All right, so let's keep it going. So if you're not making money while you sleep, you don't have stability, you have exposure. Another one they write down on the refrigerator. Write down on that mirror in the bathroom. Write down on that full-length mirror that you look at every single morning before you walk out that door. Okay, make this a screenshot on your phone so that it makes you think about what are you doing. And this is how rich people get richer, making money in that sleep. If you're getting up every single day and going to work, you are on a linear understanding, because as soon as you go to sleep, guess what? That money stops. Only 20% of Americans earn passive income, mostly dividends, investment, and rent, or interest, my apologies. Right? The wealth don't trade hours, they own assets. Okay, think about that again. The wealthy don't trade hours, they own assets. I was telling the youth today, I'm an investor. I'm someone who invests in a lot of products. And whatever I own, I make sure I'm invested in it. So when I make a purchase, wherever that might be, I'm getting some dividend back. I'm getting something back. Might not be the full purchase, but I at least know that my money that I'm putting into the companies that I own, I'm getting some of it back. And if you are intimidated by investing, if you're intimidated by trading, if you're intimidated by all of these understandings that you should not be intimidated by, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now offering you an out, an opportunity to do something that banks do not want you to know, that academia does not want you to know, that employers do not want you to have a good understanding of. But it's up to you. All right, the $69 trillion market Who owns it? $69 trillion market. Total U.S. stock market, 69 trillion as of plus January 26th framing. 69 trillion. If equal $203,000 per American, but yet the bottom 50 own 1%. So wrap your head, and I'm going to say this as well. This is arithmetic, folks. This is math. This is nothing that's, it's hyperbole. No, this is math. Do the math. Do the math. Let's keep it going. Oh, sorry, go back. My apologies. All right, let's talk about that bottom. Bottom 50% owned, 3,800 per person. The top 1%, that is 49.9% per person. That is $9.5 million per person. What are we doing to ourselves? What are we doing? You're going to have to change some of this direction. Because if you do, I'm already telling you, it's going to get better for you. But you got to want it more than those of us who are presenting it to you. All right, participation isn't the same as ownership. Participation is the same as ownership. About 62% of Americans may participate as traders or investors, but unevenly. Only 29% under 50,000 own stock. 87% of households earning 100,000 K plus own stock. 87%. Got to think about, what am I doing with my money? Yes, it's nice to have the fancy and the luxury and all of that, which comes with those words. But if you're making Walmart richer, they're thanking you. If you're making Target richer, they're thanking you. If you're making Macy's richer, they're thanking you. But they're not giving you anything in return. But keep coming back and get that 10% coupon. 10% coupon is a joke. Miles on a credit card are a joke. Stop buying into the gimmicks. If you're traveling on a regular basis, you're getting taken advantage of. Okay? Same market, different access, different outcome. Same market, different access, different outcome. So we're going to talk about something that might be a little bit scary to people, as well as this whole conversation probably was scary to a lot of people. But these are the 7 principles that the lab, it's our foundation. We are traders, not traders to this nation, because I am a proud veteran who served this country, and I understand that I made an oath, took an oath, my apologies, to protect this country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, we have clearly more domestic enemies than we do foreigners. So principles, not promises. Okay? If you learn how to trade, you need to know what moves the market. If you learn how to invest, you need to know what moves the market. Accumulation and demand. Accumulation of data, information creates that demand. Or it could be the demand is creating that accumulation. Potato, potato. Distribution and supply. Well, accumulation and demand, that pushes the market in an upwards direction. Distribution and supply. You have to decide, again, the supply or distribution. Once the market has reached its cap, it can't go any further, the price of that asset is going to go down. That's that whole supply that had made that way up. What goes up must eventually come back down. Support and resistance. Every structure has a floor and a ceiling. When you understand how that support and that resistance impact your overall investments or trades or whatever that looked like, you're probably going to be a much more profitable trader or an investor. But what this really does, it creates leverage for you, because you get to take your data And you get to go to your investment individuals or the banks and you get to say, hey, let me see your data because they're doing the exact same thing. Break of structure. When that resistance or that support is broken, more than likely it's going to continue in that direction of where it's going, whether it be up or whether it be down. But prior to that, you're going to be able to pick up on the CHOCH, which is the change of character. Structure plus character. Again, as I said, principles, not promises. But you're going to have to learn what they're doing. And if you do not learn what they're doing, guess what? You're going to be taken advantage of. Compound interest. Albert Einstein, he called it the eighth wonder of the world. Asset ownership and appreciation. If you do not start making sure that things that you are buying are appreciating, what are you buying them for? It's nice to have a new pair of Jordans at 300, 350. But as soon as you wear them, you can't take them back to Foot Locker, Champs, or wherever else that might look like, Finish Line. You can't take them back with the sole worn in. I just found out something from Nike, and maybe you guys may want to know this, that on the inside of your shoes, there's a barcode. And it has a manufacturer's date. And if your shoes do fall apart for whatever the various reasons, you get to call Nike, and they either have to give you the same identical pair, or they have to send you a coupon or something, not a coupon, but a, what are those things called? A voucher for the exact same amount that you paid. So there are things that we can do to get around. Last but not least, financial literacy as strategy. You have to know what these institutions are doing. If you do not know, you are being taken advantage of. It's just that simple. All right, compound interest, the math, not magic. Compound interest is math. It is not magic. So if you were to take $200 a month at 10% for 20 years, that is $151,874. Money has to start making money. If you don't know how money makes money, well, here's a glimpse and what that looks like. You youth, those of you now entering into that space, those of you now getting allowances or having a part-time job or whatever that looks like, those of you who are already in the higher academia space and you already got somewhat of a good job and it's allowing you to manage your student loan bills along with other bills, again, think about what this math looks like. $200 a month at 10% for 30 years. That's $452,098. $452,098. If you decide to get really good and you want to even add more to that, $500 at 10% for 30 years, $1.1 million. Small deposits plus time equals life-changing outcomes. But you have to decide. Again, if cable is too expensive, well then, cut it off. All these subscriptions that you have, stop them. You want to send a clear message? That's how you get prices to be reduced. That's how you then start putting that money into other avenues to make it make more sense for you and not just for them. But there you have it right there, a slight little small glimpse into what you need to be doing. All right, we're about 3 minutes out. So as I say, we're not going to get through this entire PowerPoint presentation. My apologies again for the disturbances of the ringer here. But again, as live shows are live, we're going to deal with the interruptions. I know you saw my little guy come in the background here as well. But again, life is lifing. And those little interruptions or mishaps, that's not going to stop the fact that this information is still valuable. And you're going to have to do something different. So financial literacy equals wealth multiplier. Financial literacy has a casual, substantial effect on wealth. A modest increase in literacy rises net worth meaningfully. Literacy increases both liquid and illiquid asset holdings. So think about that. Strategy, teach, literacy like survival. And we're going to end it right here, the 7% solution. What happens when 7% more people enter the investor class? U.S. population, 340, depending on where you go. If 7% decided to enter, that would be 23.8 million people. A $200 investment for 20 years at 10%, that is $3.64 trillion in new household wealth. This is scalable, repeatable, community-wide transformation. Oh, I don't want to end it there. I'm going to end it on this one right here, because this one is definitely the killer right here. All right, so 7% by groups. The targeted strike, African Americans, 51.6 million. 7% equals 3.67 million, which would turn into about $553 billion. Women, 170 million. 7%, what would that do? You'll be taking 11.9 million, turning it into $1.82 trillion. Youth of color, 40 million. 7% equals 2.8, which would turn into 4.29 billion. And all Americans, 32.8, who now add to the investor class, well, that's 3.64 trillion. All right, 7% changes a lot. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I am so grateful to do what I do. I would not be able to do this without you, and I want to thank you for making time, as always, joining the conversation, being part of the discussion. You can reach me at leveragecreditrecovery@gmail.com. You can text me at 805-428-9424. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, this is always my pleasure, and I look forward to doing even more of these as we end off the month of Women's Month and as we enter into the month of April, which is Financial Literacy Month. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great remainder of your evening. And as always, be safe, America.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.